I'm mainly going to be giving my reaction to Trump's tax legislation, and this is not a surprise. Many people knew this was coming because of Project 2025. Now that these things are going into effect, a lot of people are going to be experiencing depression, and a lot of people's feelings of depression are going to come from hopelessness and despair. Then watching people feel the impacts of Medicaid and Medicare cuts to funding that help people go to school, and an increase in funding in ICE and the military. People are going to feel the emotional impacts of seeing people face the effects of those things. And depression is one of many reasons why people take their life. And I want to make sure people do not do that and continue to find healthy ways to live their life, as much as people think that we are cooked. So many people say that. Anytime something has happened, these very brief 7 months of chaos of the Trump presidency, his second term, many people say we're cooked. What does that mean for people's lives? I'm curious how people are going to justify continuing to go about their lives if they think we're cooked. Does that mean people are on a depressive autopilot, functionally depressed? Does that mean only the people who think we're cooked further isolate themselves? That's one thing about depression. And of course, you can't control some of these things. When you are depressed, they're just what ends up showing up in your life. When you're made aware of those things, you can try to change it, but the depression makes it hard to try to change those things. So you will have to likely seek out more help. If people think we're cooked, people won't aspire to a bunch of things. I understand that some people don't have a passion, some people don't have a purpose. I think some people genuinely don't have a passion or purpose, and I think some people lack the confidence and self-esteem to find their passion and purpose. And I think sometimes people are too scared to find a passion or purpose because they feel like they're not worthy of those things, or they're surrounded by other very depressed people that they might not get that encouragement to actually seek their purpose or passion. So I hope people actually try to do that, because my main reoccurring question is going to be, what's the point? If everything feels like it's crashing down, my next question is, well, why do people persist to live through those things? And obviously there are things to live for, or maybe it's just too scary to take death into your own hand. I think it's a mix of things. I do think there is a lot to live for if people chase those things. There are some people that never really think this big and admire other people that do think big in terms of chasing your will to live. Also, when you are going through a period of extended despair because of the lack of health care or financial stability, these are very real situations that you cannot think yourself out of, and sometimes you cannot work yourself out of. But I think there are some people who can work themselves out of it or have a path out of it, and they may not take that opportunity because of a variety of reasons. There are a lot of people to be disappointed in, and I want people to actually ask themselves if they hate who they are becoming, if they don't like who they are becoming because of the things that the Trump presidency or administration is doing. One way to look at a lot of these things are to look at history and look at a lot of the tough things that people had to survive through. Some people, of course, did not make it, but we can go back to the Civil Rights Movement, Jim Crow. We can look at the Great Depression. Then there are other things like outbreaks, the Spanish flu, and then even going further back, whatever was happening during the Victorian era. Human beings go through a lot. Many of the things human beings go through are inflicted by others. Some things are random occurrences. And it seems like each generation may have their fair share depending on what those causes are. I do think running away from the discussion of despair or death from despair and natural causes or systemic causes is not helpful. I think it has been very healthy for me to be curious about the consequences that can come from a variety of things without obsessing over trying to prevent certain risks. I think there's a balance. I think there's a balance of knowing that there are some things out of your control while also striving to want to live. I also think there's a bravery. Over the last few weeks, I've been seeing a variety of people talk about suicidal ideation that comes from a variety of things. Like, everybody's things are different. And I think there is a suicidal ideation that comes up when people talk about political despair, but I don't know how many people take it serious. And I'm here because I do take it serious. I think that a lot of people are going to be dealing with suicidal ideation because of the depression that may be triggered due to the Trump administration. This is the 7th month of Trump's current term. So what are the next 3 years going to look like, especially as there are more negative repercussions in people's lives? So one thing that depression also does is impair problem solving. Your decision making may be impaired and your ability to concentrate. Problem solving is a huge part of making it through this administration and the things that will come into effect and will take at least maybe even a decade to undo. And to be honest, I think of people who are going to feel like a burden because of their depression. And I also think of people who are actually going to be a burden, because it is really tough to get people to develop problem-solving skills. It is really difficult to get people to have a level of self-awareness where they're able to take whatever little bit of life they have into their own hands. Not everybody's going to have the perfect mentor. Not everybody's going to have the perfect guardian. Some people won't have a good friend by their side where you can express yourself honestly and reveal to someone or something what you're going through and have that person watch you come out on the other side. Many people are not their lowest moments, but when you're in your lowest moments, it does not feel at all like that doesn't define your identity. With depression, that can also lead to substance abuse issues. Many people may already be coping with a variety of things, whether it's vaping, alcohol, and other harder drugs. And many people do this in private. Or there are certain people that get to see other people on substances. I've personally never witnessed someone on hard drugs to my knowledge, but I know that can be a secret that many people have that they use to cope with it. Many people might not be able to afford some of the substances they are addicted to as economic conditions become more tight. Overall, in how I'm discussing things, I'm really full of a lot of questions and a lot of obvious statements about what people can and can't do. And a part of me is discussing a lot of this because I'm accepting it as well. I think I need to accept that bad things happen. For me, bad things happen to me and around me, but not to the extent that I've seen it happen to other people. And I'm extremely grateful for that. There are some things I've seen other people go through that I do not think I'd be able to handle. I don't know if there's this illusion of control that I have over my life that allows me to even be so optimistic. All the time, I can't wait to see what I'm going to do with my life and with the opportunities in front of me. There's this level of confidence that I have about my life and my ability to overcome adversity. And of course, that's not it. I always know there's some random person who is exactly like me, but they've just been dealt a different set of cards. But I also don't think that anyone has to live as if they are the worst version of themselves or they've been dealt cards that they were not dealt. All because you're aware that somebody is going through something worse than you does not mean you have to vicariously live that experience. I really think there's an issue with people acknowledging other people's pain and suffering, especially when it can be temporary, and not feeling immense guilt. I also think we hear this narrative from people who you otherwise would not want to hear it from. I personally don't hear this narrative from regular everyday people. I'm a regular everyday low-income person who does not feel like I have to hold myself back from being optimistic or taking on opportunities just because someone else cannot. Knowing that I am a normal, regular person who is just dealt a different set of cards, I am going to actually live my life until I'm experiencing something that sucks. Because like I said before, is it even possible to move through life where you completely acknowledge everyone's pain and suffering and even everything that people want to celebrate? Is it even possible to memorialize someone when people's lives are priceless and you have to go about your day sometimes where you can't fully live life to the fullest? You can't fully acknowledge how much someone meant to you every single day, even though you feel like they deserve that. And I think with the very serious repercussions of the Trump tax bill, this will only impair people's thinking to where I think people have to be very strict about realizing the consequences of this bill. And please look it up on your own. I'm reacting to it, not informing people on the details of the bill. I think it will be very important for people's despair to look at what actually will be the consequences rather than having distorted thinking as well of what will be consequences. My main concern, though, is that this Trump tax bill will be one of many reasons why people fall into a depression because of the state of the world, and how that depression will lead to people feeling like life is not worth living, there's nothing to live for, there is no future. And then we have people either on autopilot, wallowing away, or we have people that pose a serious risk to themselves. And what is going to be motivating people through the next 4 years or through the rest of their lives to look on the bright side or wait for a bright side to come? I'm just really full of questions. I feel like the things people need are, of course, a really good therapist and maybe even medication, but many people are obviously going to turn to doom scrolling. They're going to turn to probably trying to get other people to succumb to their despair. And that's a really huge pet peeve of mine. I really do not like when other people try to force you to be as miserable as they are. Because some people don't even have the right to be miserable. Some people are guilty about the things they can enjoy, so they overdo their misery. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. But there are going to be some people who make you feel bad for trying to live your life where you can. And you have to ignore those people by any means necessary. There is a life worth living, whether you love nature, whether you love riding bikes, whether you love cars, whatever you love. You'll find yourselves in those places. Maybe you love connecting with other people. There are passions worth pursuing and exploring. And it might not always look like how you want it to. You're going to have to go through trial and error. You are going to have to constantly try things and be open-minded and stumble across your will to live, maybe. I also really don't like the people that, at least on social media, use that as their outlet to spread despair, but other people don't realize that this person might only use social media as their outlet to express despair, and then they go about their day. I think people do have to change their point of view of what they're seeing online versus what people's actual lives are. Because I shouldn't say I don't like, but I do think it's actually perfectly fine. I think whatever humans do are just whatever humans do. So if people only come online to share their despair and they use that as their outlet and they go about their business, I actually really don't mind that. People have to take what others say with a grain of salt. But also people might express this in their day-to-day lives. Maybe you have a friend that only comes to you to talk about their despair, but they don't do that with other friends. Maybe there's someone who vents about despair to a lot of people, but they only vent. And once they do that, they're able to go about their day because they were able to express themselves. So with that said, I'm basically going back to the point that I don't think people should hide their despair. And I also think people should work through their depression if possible. And the Trump tax bill is one of many real reasons why people will fall into a depression. And this will be another validation for people that life isn't worth living and that there is not a future. And there definitely is one. Anytime you see someone expressing that there is no future, they're alive doing that. So that is a good thing.